Welcome everybody to the video. Here what we have is an Old Man Emu Expedition rear spring kit that we bought from OK 4-Wheel Drive that we're going to install into the Colorado. So we wanted to bring that rear end up a little bit. It is sagging due to the weight, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do in sort of like a prep mode is really just grease the heck out of basically the bushings and all those parts. The last thing we want is a squeaky rear leaf suspension or anything like that. So we're using marine grade grease, and we're coating all surfaces of the bushings, and we're coating the inside and outside of the sleeves. And we have installed the bushings into the new springs. Very easy. I mean, really, we did everything by hand. They were real easy to push in. They fit in perfectly. And then after getting them in, we applied some more grease on all the surfaces. So we're getting the truck up in the air. So let's get started. So basically we've used jack stands. So we have jack stands holding up the frame. And then we've put our floor jack underneath the differential here, as you can see, to be able to rise and lower the differential as needed, and really also provide some extra stability while we're working and safety. So we remove the wheel and we can look, you can see the existing setup. You can see the spring, it's actually pretty compressed and flat. But yeah, basically we've disconnected the shock from the shock mount, so that's hanging free. So this frees up the axle. And we're getting ready to go. All right, so we loosened up the U-bolts. And you can see once you start getting them loose, the bump stop frees up. And we're also pointing here, the ZR2 has a 1-inch lift block. That's the Bison actually. So basically what we want to do is, the kit that we bought comes with new U-bolts, but because of this lift block, we're going to reuse the stock U-bolts. All right, let's take a look under the truck. So we've basically got that new leaf spring installed on the passenger side, and she's looking good. One thing to take note is it's a little bit of a tight squeeze around that exhaust. So it took some rigging around. Now we have the U-bolts on, but just lightly tightened because we want to do the other side, and we want to be able to have that axle move. And you really don't want to torque anything down, until you're taking the pressure off. But yes, this is the driver's side. A little bit different over here. I mean, the setup's pretty much the same, but this is the contentious issue. This bolt right here for the shock. As you can see, the head of it points towards the gas tank. So this kit actually comes with a new bolt. So what we'll do, instead of dropping the gas tank and all that other stuff that I've seen people do on other YouTube videos, what we're going to do is we'll loosen up this nut. We'll provide a little bit of a gap there between that bolt head, and we're just going to cut it off. So this will allow us to pull out the bolt, get it out without having to do anything with the gas tank. And this will also allow us to insert the new bolt properly, and we'll put it in the other direction so it comes So the actual head is on the outside, so the bolt will be easily removable in the future. Now, one thing to worry about, when you saw, will the head pop down there into the skid plate? We'll see, but it is a tight squeeze in there. But there's enough room for a sawzall. There's enough room for any type of cutting implement tool. I think we'll be able to squeeze it in there with no problem. All right, so we have the nut off, and what we've done is we've tapped the bolt enough. As you can see, now I have a gap between the mount and the head of the screw. So we'll get in there with a sawzall first, and then maybe a manual hand saw if we have to. But yeah, let's get started. All right, that was not as easy as I would have liked. The sawzall did work, it did establish, but the one I have is pretty bulky, it's pretty big. It was sort of a little bit overkill. So we did use a handsaw. As you can see, it did cut through the bolt. The blade worked fine, didn't beat it up too much, but yeah, this handsaw worked good. Finished off the cut, from where we had started it, and now we're ready to reinstall. As you say, we have everything prepped. I got the U-bolts off, the bump stop off. Now it's just a matter of getting this spring out of its little set and getting a new one in there. So you can see the lift block. So this is a 1-inch lift block. I've lowered the differential a little bit, brought that side down to take pressure off the spring. I've been very careful not to stretch out any brake lines or any ABS lines or anything like this. That block fits in there really well. I've greased up both mounts where the shock goes. So the inside of those mounts, I've applied the grease as well. So basically any surface that's going to touch those bushings, I've greased. All right, there we go. We got them in. Whew. It's not easy, obviously. A spring, an uncompressed spring only has a certain amount of give, and you definitely have to play around and get those in there. But we're all greased up. That nut is facing the way it should. So now, if you ever had to pull it out, it would come out the outside. What I did is I had a wrench, and I put the nut on and some tape just to hold the nut in place as I put it up there, and then really just pushed and then threaded the bolt through that nut. But I was able to hold it without it dropping or falling down into the skid plate, because that would have been a disaster, if you ask me. So yeah, it worked out great. Everything's in there, that's tightened up. I've got the bump stop in, the U-bolts, just sort of hand tightened, and then everything's mounted up into the back mount as well. So now basically it's a matter of tightening everything up. So what we'll do is we will get the wheels back on both sides. Then we will lower down the rig. And that way that'll start applying the necessary pressure. And then when that happens, we'll start tightening up, and we'll start tightening up the U-bolts. We'll get those torqued to spec. We'll reinstall the shocks, get those torqued up to specs, and really get the truck back to where it needs to be. So was this painful? There was some finagling here and there. It wasn't a bad install. It wasn't the easiest, but it wasn't the hardest. And we'll just have to see how it goes, see how it rides. All right, we're back together. Haven't fully cleaned up all the tools as of yet, but we got the vehicle dropped, the wheels are out, and we have everything torqued to spec. So yeah, so we will measure the height, and really after all is said and done, it looks like we've gained about a couple inches without the vehicle being fully loaded. Everything looks good, everything's back up tight. We'll see how it rides and settles. So thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And don't forget, watch our other videos.